But you've also said that there's a lot of fat in government that you would want to slim down.
Incredible fat. So
what agencies would you want to shut down?
Well, let me have you ask another person that, because I'm going to have Elon Musk. He is dying to do this. He's a great business guy, and he's a great cost cutter. You've seen that. And he said, I could cut costs without affecting anybody.
So he will be in the cabinet?
Not in the cabinet. He doesn't want to be in the cabinet. He just wants to be in charge of cost cutting. We'll have a new position, Secretary of Cost Cutting.
And that was President-elect Trump telling me about Elon Musk's potential new role in his administration. Musk is aiming to cut $2 trillion from the U.S. budget. The U.S. national debt is now closing in on $36 trillion. Joining me now is Virginia Congressman Ben Cline. He's a member of the House Judiciary, Budget, Appropriations, and China Select Committees. So, Congressman, we were looking forward to having you on the program to get your thoughts on Musk's plan. Is that doable, to cut $2 trillion out of the budget?
It absolutely is. I'm a member of the Republican Study Committee, which is the policy arm of the Republican Conference, and we've come up with a balanced budget in 7 years. The Budget Committee's put one out that balances in 10 years. We can do it and make sure that we focus funding toward the American people and not toward bureaucracies in Washington.
But you can't do it without touching entitlements, can you?
You can, but we have to make sure. Joe Biden has sat by while Social Security and Medicare are going bankrupt in 10 years. We have to make sure that those programs are not just existing, but vibrant and successful for future generations. So we want to actually examine how we can improve Social Security and Medicare for future generations and actually keep them going long term.
And would your first attack be at all of these spending on the climate change agenda? I mean, give me one idea in terms of what's significant that you think that's got to go right away.
Well, let's just look at the Department of Education and how billions of dollars stay in Washington funding bureaucrats whose simple goal is to interfere in the decisions about educational choice at local and state levels. Parents are getting their decisions overridden by bureaucrats in Washington who have never set foot in their home, in their community, in their school divisions, and don't know anything about how to educate their kids. So scaling back, block granting, a lot of the education money is a way to get the money to the localities, but not with all the rules and regulations.
Okay. Well, let's talk China for a moment. Chinese President Xi Jinping calling President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory yesterday. However, Xi also told Trump that the U.S. would, quote, gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation with Beijing, likely referring to potential tariffs threatened by Trump. Congressman, where are you on the tariff situation, and how will the policy toward China change?
Well, we recognize that China is a threat to U.S. interests. They're trying to raise their own profile globally at the expense of the United States. They have spies at our military installations. They're trying to monopolize drone manufacturing, the chip manufacturing. So we need a policy, and Trump has put in place policies that Biden has continued that confront these Chinese attitudes and make sure that we are ultimately going to be the victors in this confrontation.
I mean, it's interesting to see companies already start thinking about taking their supply chains out of China, right, and start manufacturing here. We're going to talk more about that coming up in the program. Are you expecting more of that?
Absolutely. He's not going to hesitate to stand up to China and make sure that our manufacturers, American consumers, American citizens, are the ones who ultimately win from this confrontation.
All right. Carolyn, jump in.
Yeah, Congressman, I wanted to ask about the Elon Musk efficiency commission that's being floated. I know, just to call back to that, I want to know, like, is he going to prioritize certain waste, certain administrative bloat? Because as Maria was saying, fiscal conservatism, austerity, restraint, that's all unpopular on both sides of the aisle. So this is actually a very radical step in a positive direction for the Republican Party. But, you know, as she said, if he cracks down on entitlements, you know, that could create some backlash. But I just want to get a sense of, you know, are there certain items of waste that you think he should look at first?
Well, let's remember that the American people elected Donald Trump because of inflation, because of the inflation that Joe Biden created, Nancy Pelosi created, because of the trillions of dollars in new spending that they put in place, the Green New Deal agenda that is going to have to be repealed, revoked, scaled back. This Green New Deal agenda is costing taxpayers billions of dollars out of their pockets and making goods and services cost even more. So when Elon Musk comes in and says, I'm going to use my expertise, my knowledge to help drain the swamp and actually reduce costs, that's going to help American consumers because it's going to bring costs down. When you combine that with energy independence, it's really going to help the American people.
Congressman, what can you tell us about the House? Republicans are closing in on a sweep, winning the House as well as the Senate and the White House. House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise are not waiting for it to be official. Both announced that they're running for re-election. In a letter, Johnson writes this: I look forward to playing the biggest offense of our lives. We have a country to save, and we will. I know you are running to become the next chairman of the Republican Study Committee, facing off with Texas Congressman August Pfluger. Tell us what you're hoping to do.
Well, as I said, the RSC is the policy arm of the Republican conference, working with the administration, coming in on these great new ideas for policy changes and making sure that we increase efficiencies, reduce wasteful spending. I'm excited to take the budget that balances that we've created at RSC and try and apply that real world. But the Speaker, the Majority Leader, all of our leadership is doing a fantastic job, and we're just excited to get to work with a new Trump administration and a Republican-led Senate to help the American people.
How many seats do you expect the House to have Republican?
You know, if we're at the same point where we left off at the end of this Congress, that would be fine. But I anticipate we've got some great new members coming in, and we should be able to be a seat or two ahead of where we were in the 118th.
All right, Congressman, good to see you. Thank you. We'll be watching. Ben Cline joining us this